The Thanksgiving dinner at the Miller household was impeccable, as always. The turkey was golden brown, the mashed potatoes were fluffy, and the conversation was lively. But when the appetizer, a platter of fresh Maryland crab cakes, was passed around, the mood at the head of the table shifted. Uncle Silas, a burly man of 70 with a face weathered by years at sea, turned pale. He pushed his chair back abruptly, his eyes fixed on the platter with a look of sheer terror. "Get that away from me," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Uncle Silas?" young Danny asked, confused. "It's just crab. You used to love seafood." Silas wiped sweat from his forehead. "Not anymore, kid. Not since '95. Not since the Devil's Atoll." The table went silent. We knew Uncle Silas had spent his youth as a naval surgeon in the Pacific, but he rarely spoke of it. Tonight, however, the sight of the crab seemed to unlock a door he had kept bolted for 50 years. "It was 1895, Silas began, his voice dropping to a gravelly low. "I was a young doctor aboard the SS Liberty, a steamer heading from San Francisco to Manila. I was carrying something precious, a sealed case of experimental smallpox vaccines. We were trying to stop an outbreak in the colonies." He took a sip of water, his hand shaking slightly. "We were passing through the Sulu Sea when they hit us. Pirates. Not the romantic kind you see in movies. These were butchers. They lured us into a trap near a jagged volcanic rock formation known as the Devil's Tooth. Our ship ran aground, the hull tore open, and chaos broke out." Silas stared into the distance. "Most of the crew died in the crash or by the blade. The rest of us? We were hauled off to their hideout. It was a hollowed-out volcano, a secret lagoon hidden from the open sea, a natural fortress. We were thrown into bamboo cages, enslaved to sort their loot. We thought the pirates were the monsters," Silas said grimly. "We were wrong. It started a week later. I was down by the lagoon, washing nets, when the water turned red. I thought it was algae at first. Then I saw them. Crabs. Tiny, red crabs, millions of them, swarming out of the deep. At first, the pirates laughed. They thought it was a feast. But these weren't normal crabs. They were voracious. They ate the fish stocks in hours. Then they came for the food stores. And when the food ran out, they turned on us." Danny's eyes were wide. "They ate people?" "They swarmed like locusts," Silas nodded. "Billions of clicking claws. You couldn't walk without stepping on them. They climbed walls, chewed through wood. The pirates tried to fight them with muskets and fire, but you can't shoot a tide. By the third night, there was nowhere to sleep. If you lay down, you didn't get up. I knew I had to run. I grabbed my medical kit, the one with the vaccines, and scrambled up the volcanic rock, looking for a cave, anything high up. The ground was moving, a living carpet of red shells. I found a small crevice in the cliffside, barricaded the entrance with dry brush, and lit a fire. It was the only thing that kept them back. But as I scrambled in, I slipped. The glass vial in my pocket, the live smallpox virus, shattered. A shard of glass pierced my thigh. At the same moment, one of those devilish crabs latched onto the wound, pinching deep into the infected blood. Silas shuddered. I killed the crab, but the damage was done. I sat in that cave, fever setting in, waiting to die from the virus or be eaten alive. I passed out, hallucinating, hearing the clicking of a million claws outside. When I woke up, the silence was deafening. He leaned forward, looking each of us in the eye. I crawled out, weak as a kitten. The island was a graveyard, but not just of men. The crabs. They were all dead. Piles of them, knee-deep, rotting in the sun. The pirates were gone, picked clean before the end. I managed to patch up a lifeboat and drift until a merchant ship picked me up days later. They said I was delirious, raving about a plague. "But how did they die?" Danny asked. Silas smirked, a dark, humorless expression. "I'm a doctor, Danny. I've had 50 years to think about it. That crab that bit me, it drank my blood. Blood laced with the most potent smallpox virus known to man. It went back to the swarm. Cannibalism is common in swarms. One ate the infected one, 10 ate him, and it spread like wildfire. A species-jumping plague. The virus wiped them out in 24 hours. Silas looked back at the crab cakes on the table and shuddered. I saved the world that day, maybe, but I can still hear that clicking sound in my sleep. So, no, take that plate away." It happened about 4 years ago. Sometimes I try to convince myself it was all a hallucination, perhaps brought on by stress or a fever. But deep down, I know the truth. I was perfectly healthy mentally and physically. I was just an ordinary history teacher at Willow Creek Middle School, living a life governed by the school bell and grading papers. That is, until the day of the medal. It was a humid afternoon in late May, just before the summer break. I was writing on the chalkboard when a commotion broke out in the back row. 2 boys were shoving each other. "Hey, cut it out!" I snapped, turning around. "Mr. Wright, Danny is trying to steal my medal," shouted Tommy, a quiet boy who rarely caused trouble. "I wasn't stealing it, I just wanted to see it," Danny protested. I walked over, my patience wearing thin. "Tommy, bring it here. And Danny, sit down." Tommy hesitated, but handed over a heavy, tarnished piece of metal. It wasn't a cheap plastic toy from a cereal box. It felt cold, ancient. It was a silver medallion, old and worn, with engravings I couldn't quite make out, perhaps Latin, or something older. It looked like a relic from the Civil War, maybe even the Revolution. "Where did you get this, Tommy?" I asked, turning it over in my hand. "It's my grandpa's, sir. He said I could bring it for show and tell." Tommy mumbled, looking anxious. "But please, I need it back. Grandpa says it's special." "You'll get it back after school. I can't have you boys fighting over heirlooms in class," I said, slipping the heavy disc into my pocket. That was my mistake. After school, I completely forgot to return the medal. I drove home with the heavy metal disc still weighing down my jacket pocket. I lived alone in a small rental house on the edge of town, near the old woods. That evening, the atmosphere felt wrong. The air in my living room grew frigid, despite the summer heat. As I sat grading papers, I heard the heavy rhythmic thud of boots pacing on my front porch. Thud, thud, thud. I froze. I wasn't expecting visitors. I went to the window and peered out, but the porch was empty. The yard was bathed in moonlight, silent and still. "Must be the wind," I muttered, though there wasn't a breeze to be found. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I headed down the dirt path that led toward the creek. I knew this path like the back of my hand, but as I rounded the bend, I stopped dead in my tracks. There, standing in the middle of a clearing that should have been empty, was a massive, gnarled oak tree. Its branches were twisted like skeletal fingers, reaching for the sky. I rubbed my eyes. That tree wasn't there yesterday. In fact, I knew for a certainty that no such tree existed in these woods. Yet, there it was, solid and menacing. A sense of dread washed over me, a primal fear that whispered, "You are not supposed to see this." I turned and ran back to the house, my heart pounding against my ribs. As I fumbled for my keys, I felt the metal in my pocket burning hot, as if it were fresh from a forge. The next morning, I couldn't get to school fast enough. The moment the bell rang, I called Tommy to my desk. "Here," I said, handing the medal back. My hand actually trembled slightly. "Take it, and don't bring it to school again." Tommy looked relieved, clutching the medal tightly. Did anything happen, Mr. Wright?" "Why do you ask?" "Grandpa wanted to see you. He's outside in his truck." Curiosity got the better of me. I walked out to the parking lot, where an old, weathered man was waiting in a beat-up pickup truck. "Mr. Wright?" the old man asked, leaning out the window. "Tommy tells me you held onto the medal last night." "I did," I replied, trying to sound casual. "It's an interesting piece. Civil War?" The old man's face was grim. "Older. My great-grandfather got it from a soldier who deserted his post back in the 1800s, a man who dabbled in things he shouldn't have." He paused, looking me dead in the eye. "That medal is cursed, son. It stays in our bloodline. Anyone else who keeps it..." "Well, the last man who tried was my brother-in-law. He thought it was nonsense. Took it home to show a friend. That same night, he fell off his roof, broke his neck. A cold chill ran down my spine, remembering the phantom tree and the heavy boots on my porch. Some folks say they see things," the old man continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Landscapes that don't exist anymore, shadows that follow them. You're lucky you gave it back when you did." He tipped his hat, rolled up the window, and drove away. I stood there in the bright morning sun, shivering. I never asked about the medal again. But sometimes, when I drive past those woods at night, I glanced toward the clearing, praying I never see that twisted oak tree again. It was the summer of '83. I had just finished my finals at NYU and drove back home to Oak Creek, Ohio, looking forward to a quiet break. I stayed at my ancestral farmhouse with my great-uncle Silas. Uncle Silas was the toughest man I knew, a 5-year-old retired lush landscape gardener, always seen in his signature red suspenders and a chewing tobacco tin in his pocket. He wasn't the type to get scared. But that Friday night, everything changed. Around midnight, a blood-curdling scream echoed from Silas's bedroom on the ground floor. I rushed in to find him huddled in the corner, pointing a trembling finger at his bed. "There's someone there, under the bed." He gasped, sweat pouring down his face. I checked. Nothing, just dust bunnies. But Silas was adamant. He described the intruder in terrifying detail. A man with a jagged scar running from his eye to his jaw, smelling of wet earth and rot. Dr. Arthur Reynolds, our family physician and a rational man, was called in. He gave Silas a sedative, dismissing it as a hallucination brought on by old age. But Silas never slept in that bed again. He spent his days sitting in the garden, staring blankly, and his nights screaming that the scarred man was waiting for him. Curious, I went to the local library and scrolled through microfilms of the Oak Creek Gazette. I found a small article from a month ago. A drifter named Ray Razor Vance, known for a jagged facial scar, had committed suicide in the woods. His body had been found weeks later, partially eaten by coyotes. 2 days later, Uncle Silas died. His heart just gave out. A week after the funeral, I ran into Dr. Reynolds at the gas station. He looked terrible, gaunt, pale, and shaking. "Rough week, Doc?" I asked. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands. "You could say that. I just came from the Miller place. Their little girl, Emily, she passed away last night. Brain fever, they say." He paused, looking me dead in the eye. Before she died, she was screaming, "Mike." Screaming that there was someone under her bed. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did she see him, Doc? Did she see the man with the scar? Dr. Reynolds dropped his cigarette. His voice was a whisper. "No, Mike. She didn't see the drifter. She described a big old man, wearing red suspenders." My blood ran cold. She had seen Uncle Silas, doctor. Reynolds got into his car, staring at his own reflection in the rearview mirror with pure terror. "And now I can't go home, Mike." "Why not?" "Because," he choked out. "Ever since Emily died, every time I look under my bed, I see a little girl staring back at me." Doctor. Reynolds was admitted to the state asylum the next day. He died 3 days later, screaming about the thing beneath his bed.